Good afternoon and welcome to the Orkney International Science Festival 2021 online in this year of Scotland's coasts and waters. My name is Julie Rich and it is my pleasure to be hosting this session along with Eric Walker.
Good afternoon. And Orkney itself played a part in the story we are going to hear about today, which is the Northwest Passage between two oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. It was long thought to be a fable, but it drew people to the Arctic to find out. And eventually, it was the Orcadian explorer Dr. John Rae who identified the final link in the route.
Half a century later, the Norwegian Roald Amundsen made his first journey through in a fishing boat. Now, a team of rowers are planning to tackle that very route, and they're making their attempt next year. And part of their preparation has been to row from Newcastle to Kirkwall this summer.
As well as the challenge of completing a world first, they also want to show at first hand the conditions that are coming about from climate change.
And among them will be Orcadian David Flett and Claire Hughes, who in 2018 was one of the team who set a new world record for rowing the Atlantic. And we're delighted that they're both with us today to tell us a bit more about their plans and preparations. And we'll take your questions. So please, everyone, just pop your questions into the YouTube live chat and we'll ask the Davy and Claire. I'll start with you, Davy. It's a bit special that there's an Orcadian in the team. And how long have you been rowing?
Yeah, firstly, it's very special to be in the team, being Orcadian. The rowing probably seriously began in about 2010 when we, myself and a group of others, got together to do a lot of training for a row that we did from the Shetland Islands to the Faroes. This was a charity event, so but prior to that, I grew up around the shores and out of Kirkwall, and I was paddling about in boats and canoes and things. So.
And how did the Faroes prepare you for something a bit bigger?
The Faroes row, yeah, it was really good. None of the guys involved had really done anything like that before. And we adopted the same sort of style of 2 hours rowing and 2 hours of rest. Of course, we had a safety boat with us, and we were rowing a traditional open wooden boat. Halfway through that row, I just looked out on the horizon the one day and I just knew that there was something bigger going to come, and it was just a seed that was planted and it just slowly nurtured away within myself there.
And have you got some photographs from then, I think?
Yeah, I think there should be a couple of them to come up, maybe.
I was in the Faroes myself a few years ago, and it's this spectacular scenery.
Yes, the Faroes is a wonderful place. The day that we went into it, it was thick fog, and we landed in Faroe in the South Island of Suðuroy. Beautiful coloured houses, just brightened the whole grey atmosphere up, and dwarfed by the high mountainous ranges either side of the bow when we rode into the town there.
I know, it's just an amazing time. And if we look a bit closer to home, I believe you organised a row around the Orkney mainland.
Yeah, so after doing that row to the Faroes, a couple of us decided to buy a boat and we put it out to the general public in Orkney about starting up a rowing club. So we started up the rowing club, and after a few years then, folk got a bit more experience with rowing, so we thought, right, we'd do a row right around the mainland of Orkney. This enabled a lot of club members, was 44 people in all, got a shot of rowing out with sheltered waters and more into real tidal streams. Kind of makes the boat dance a wee bit, and right through the hours of darkness, and that's a completely different aspect onto rowing, and that was really enjoyed by everybody that got involved with that.
That's great to see so many folk getting involved, and I believe you also replicated the type of journey that could have been carried out by our Neolithic Orcadians some 5,000 years ago.
Yeah, that was later on that same year. The BBC got in touch, wondering if I could put together a crew to go a hand-built Neolithic boat made from willow trees and stretch cow hide skins. That was a great challenge to be involved in. We duly did that, and some of the TV presenters was actually taking bets as to how long it would take before the boat actually broke up before we got to the other side. But luckily the boat stayed together, and we made the Pentonville crossing in just under 5 hours, which is really good considering. And that we had 8 adults in the boat, and we had 250 kilo of ballast set around the bottom of the boat as well. So it kind of proved that the people could easily have travelled in those times and carried in the boats, like their animals and things with them. You can, no problem at all.
That's great.
Claire, can I ask you about your background in rowing, which I actually believe includes a world record?
It does indeed. Yeah, I started river rowing back in 2012. Sort of generally embracing that traditional British love of sitting down sport. So I added another one to the repertoire. And yeah, just quickly caught the bug and started racing locally, and then regionally, and then nationally quite successfully. And then through the rowing club, I met 3 of the guys who were signed up to row the Atlantic in 2018. They just lost a member of the team. And we're looking for a 4th member. And so I basically spent 2 weeks stalking them, pointing out that I was available and keen. And they eventually caved in, and I got invited to join the team. And so, yes, we rowed as a mixed crew in December 2018, and broke the mixed 4 world record by, I think it was about 2 weeks in the end. So we rowed across the Atlantic in 42 days. Just relaxing scenic cruise.
Relaxing, yeah. Now, this is something that fascinates me. So you got the world record. Now, did you actually go out to set about beating a world record? Or was it just opportunistic?
Completely opportunistic. To be honest, we had quite a dramatic time even just getting to the start line. I think what a lot of people don't realise with an undertaking like that is it isn't just about the expedition itself. There's usually 18 months to 2 years of preparation that goes into it, with all your fundraising and buying your kits, or your training and all sorts of preparation. And actually during the course of that time, a lot of stuff can happen, you know, life happens. And we actually had numerous changes to our team in that build up. So to be perfectly honest, when we set off, our sole definition of success was just getting across. We didn't really care how long it took us and how stylishly it was done, but just the objective was just to get from A to B. But when we were partway across and we were feeling pretty good, and we were checking in with our kind of support crew on land to see how we were doing, and we realized that actually we were making quite good progress, and we were a lot further up the table in terms of the other competitor positions than we thought we were going to be. And then at that point, I think it would be fair to say the game faces came on, and we started to think about actually, you know, what more could we achieve here? And yeah. So it was a bonus.
Right. So if I've read you right or heard you right, there were obviously other teams that were also in with a chance of beating the world record. That's what that sounds like.
There were, yes, there were, absolutely. And actually, our main competition, we actually got on really well with them at the start line before we went out, and we even had a couple of phone calls at Christmas. So it was very friendly rivalry. But I believe 2 of them are actually setting out to do the Atlantic again in 2023. So I think that world record might be under some threat. We'll see.
Yeah. Records are always there to be broken, Claire.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But it does sound like you're a very driven person. That must be a pretty big attribute that you require for an adventure like you're just about to embark on. Now, I did a little bit of research on you, as I mentioned before the start of this webcast. You've also tackled challenges traveling over land, I believe, and one particularly interesting one over India.
That's right. Yes. So my passions in life are travel and the outdoors and adventure and challenge. And if I can combine those all into one package, then so much the better. So I've been setting myself yearly challenges just as a little bit of fun, and they've been getting increasingly wacky year on year. And so I thought I peaked in 2017 actually. So I could. I'm just going to try and share a little image with you now. But yes, I basically drove 3,500 kilometers across India in, can you now see my screen? See, there we go.
We can see it now.
Excellent. So yes, this was my lovely vehicle driving 3,500 kilometers across India, dressed as a ghostbuster, although not in that image, admittedly, with a rather lovely inflatable giraffe called Philip strapped to the roof.
Oh, well, this could take the interview in an interesting direction. Have you got an inflatable polar bear for this one? Oh.
Now, Claire, I have to ask, how will it be to be a woman on a team of men in this big challenge together?
It's a dynamic I really, really enjoy. And we talk about equality a lot and trying to adjust the kind of gender imbalance. And I think there's still very much a kind of separation of women achieving amazing things and men achieving amazing things, but actually I'm really kind of keen to continue to pull them together, because I think combined we achieve even more. I think having that kind of diversity in a team, it just adds a different aspect. It brings a slightly different perspective, and I think for us personally in our Atlantic crew, it was a real advantage, and I think it can be the same again for this row. So it's something I'm really excited about, if I'm honest. And I've always been in a very male-dominated environment. So with a lot of my outdoor activities, I've generally done with guys. It hasn't been a conscious decision. That's just been the way that it is. And I work in construction, so I'm in a very male-dominated environment. So it's not something that phases me, and I think it's a great opportunity to kind of shine a light on how great we can be together, and that we don't need to keep having just women achievements and just men achievements. Let's have a full team achievement. That makes sense.
Yeah, you know, Claire and Davey, I was watching the Tokyo Olympics recently, and there were new team events which involved both men and women together. You know, the swimming relays, some of the running relays. I thought they were fantastic. And I wonder why it's never happened before. It's just so obvious to me that the tactics, the psychology, and the training required to have mixed teams is far more representative of life in general, I would say. It's just my opinion.
I absolutely agree with you. I really do. It's actually really exciting. I don't know if you've been watching the Paralympics at all, but actually there seems to be a little bit more mixed team philosophy there. In fact, there's a really amazing girl that I used to row with who was in the British mixed four, and they've been incredibly successful for several years now, and then they've just kind of topped it off with a gold medal at the Olympics. It's just fantastic. So yeah, I hope to see more of that moving forward.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great, and you must be such an inspiration, Claire, for more women, to get involved in these big expeditions.
I hope so. I kind of try to put across that I'm a pretty average person. I'm not a finely tuned athlete. I really enjoy a good beer festival. I eat far too much cake. I cook constantly, but yeah, I still get out and I still do all these things. And for me, it's not necessarily about winning, about breaking world records. Sometimes that's fun, but it's just getting out there and doing it in whatever way you can. And it's just really exciting to see other people kind of see me doing something and think, oh, actually, you know, I wouldn't necessarily have thought that she could do that. Well, if she could do that, I'm going to give it a go as well. And that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, that's great. And can I ask you both to tell us a bit about the Northwest Passage, especially for some of our viewers that maybe don't know very much about it. Maybe starting with you, Davy, first. Why is it so famous?
The Northwest Passage is very famous because probably about the 15th century, Europeans sort of route through to Asia for trading and that, and so it attracted a number of great explorers, Sir Francis Drake, Martin Frobisher, Captain Cook, John Franklin, John Ross. All these people tried to find the navigable link across to get this trade route, and it was actually Orkney's own Dr John Rae that found it by land. He was mapping the areas by land on foot, and he found the last link, which was really good.
And Claire, how did you come to hear about the Northwest Passage?
I've always been drawn to cold and snow and those sorts of conditions. So for me, the North Pole and the South Pole equally just hold an endless fascination. I've been lucky enough to venture up into the Arctic Circle a couple of times, but this is just a completely new way of seeing it. And I think one of the lovely things about ocean rowing is you're kind of viewing it from a completely different perspective. It's a very immersive experience. Perhaps that's not a great word to use in the context of a sea expedition, but yeah, you know, there's no kind of interruption from noisy engines and all of that sort of stuff. You're just there in that environment, you know, experiencing it very much at kind of sea level, I guess. So yeah, that was immediately fascinating for me. Seeing the wildlife, you know, understanding how the communities kind of work and live up there. It's just a really exciting prospect.
You mentioned, you know, it's an extremely cold and foreboding place in a journey. And when I learned the Northwest Passage exploration in history when I was a school lad, I was given images of, you know, icebreakers and, you know, sailing ships getting stuck in the ice. Why is there now an attempt to row it? That just seems so strange to me.
So I suppose a big part that has made it possible is climate change. I mean, as we know, the climate is changing naturally, but the impacts of man on speeding that process up just means that each summer the ice is receding more and more and for longer and longer periods of time. And it's really only in recent years that this has even kind of become a viable possibility. So yeah, it's a kind of sad reality. It's an exciting opportunity, but it's also something that shouldn't really be possible.
That's a good. I like that point. Actually, it shouldn't be possible, should it? Yeah, yeah. How long, Dave? How long's the journey expected to take?
We're hoping around about the 2 months, 60-day mark would see us through the complete passage. But again, that could be plus or minus a week or two on that, just depending on the weather conditions. If we hit good weather and make good speed, or if we hit a lot of moving pack ice, we may have to backtrack and go around a bit more. So yeah, around about the 2 months there would be good.
Yeah, I think that we've got questions coming in from YouTube, so the viewers are becoming active, and having a look. The boats seem to have a unique design. Why have they got? What are they trying to overcome or circumvent?
The boats are really quite special. They're built to withstand the hardships of the Arctic Circle. They're built with carbon, and then the hull is a carbon and a Kevlar skin on it for strength, for hitting ice and rocks and things, because we will be hitting ice and rocks. and they're insulated. They've got 20mm insulation, just to add that little bit more warmth inside the cabins that we can get, because it will be pretty cold when you're on your 2 hours rest. You've been sweating for 2 hours, and then you're going to have to try and rest and keep warm as well. So all that insulation will help.
Mm. So there's got to be seaworthy and survival in the pods, basically. Yeah. What do you use for ballast, Davy?
We have, there's ballast tanks right along the length of the boat. We can fill them up if we need a bit more weight in the boat. We'll be carrying obviously our own food and things as well. It can be distributed throughout the boat in different compartments to help ballast the boat as well. But mostly it'll just be seawater in the tanks if we need it.
Cool. Sorry, Claire, I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking there. You were asking about ballast, but there's a couple of images that if it would be useful, I could show you, which is one of the boats, but also one of all the kit that goes in it, which obviously was pretty helpful as ballast too.
Yeah, I'm sure John is busily trying to get the pictures up on the screen.
Yeah.
In the interim, what about food supplies and medical support on your travel?
All our food is carried with us as well. It's just a mixture of dry rations reconstituted with boiling water, and then just a few bagfuls of high-calorie treats, chocolates, things like that, peanuts, just whatever anyone will fancy when they're getting really tired. Is the important thing. You have to really want it and enjoy it. Just gives you that pretty boost.
So actually, that's our boat that's on the screen there. And to supplement what Davy was just telling you there in terms of food, this is actually from our Atlantic row, but that is all the kit, and that was just for 4 people for 6 weeks, which needs to fit in that boat. And all the kind of bright orange, yellow packets there you can see are our dehydrated food rations that we just add water to and eat. The white bags are our snacks, so what Davy was talking about there, just with your really high calorific, high fat content stuff. So you can see it's an awful lot of stuff to fit into a small space. And that is the contents of one of the delicious dehydrated food sachets, which remarkably taste remarkably similar. This is the kind of space that we have available in the cabins, so that fits people and all our equipment. So again, you can kind of see just how tight a space we're all trying to fit into. That's actually from our Arctic boat. So there's 3 to 4 people resting in here at any one time.
Phew, right, that is quite a compact space. Yeah, the other questions that are coming in is one, how has the team been formed, and how have you built up your strength and stamina for so much rowing each day over such a long time?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, the team's been formed up by Lieven Brown, expedition leader. He put out a shout 3 years ago nearly now, and he got lots of applicants. He kind of went through them and whittled them out, interviewed people, and those that are interested and passed the sort of Lieven's grading got the next stages. So yeah, he gains exactly what he's looking for in a team. It's a fine balance of personalities and things, and trying to get everybody to get on within a small space is not an easy task, so he needs to kind of be very careful. And as for was the other question was about training?
Yes, it was. Yeah, yeah. It was how do you build up your strength and stamina over?
Yeah, I'll go with that first bit. Again, for me personally, I've been doing a lot of circuits weighted circuits, power work on the Concept 2 rower, and doing a lot of heavy tyre flipping and things like that. I train at various times through the day. I don't have set few times for I'll train at 6 o'clock each night. My body seems to work better getting shocked into training. So one day it may be 8 in the morning, the next day it may be 8 in the evening. So that's what I think it's important to find how the individual responds to the training. I think I did quite a lot of investigations and reading, and then tried a few things and found my own regime, and it will be different for everybody else's, but it's finding what works for the individual is really important.
We've had a question from Josh Gurley. He says in 1911, to the South Pole, Amundsen recognised the value of rest, set specific stages per day. And he says Davy said that having alternative 2 hours row and rest. Do the team have daily targets set? If we've got something, similar.
So yeah, we do the standard sort of 2 hours on, 2 hours off. That seems to be widely adopted by ocean rowers for pretty much all the ocean rows that I've heard of, in all honesty. It's a really fine balance. I think that kind of 2 hours rest break gives you just enough time to kind of recharge. I mean, it's important to recognize as well, you're not just sleeping in that time, you're eating, you're cleaning yourself, you're doing some navigation, cleaning the boat. There's lots of things that go on in that period. So generally you're getting maybe an hour's kip, if you're lucky. So yeah, it's that fine balance of getting just enough rest, but actually at the same time, it's a highly repetitive thing, and then certain parts of your body bear an intense amount of kind of strain. And actually, certainly for me personally, one of the things that I suffered really badly from long term after my Atlantic row was my hands and something called trigger finger. And it's just the damage that's done to the sort of the tendons, because your hands are constantly in this kind of claw shape. And actually, if you stop rowing for more than 2 hours, then the pain gets excruciating. And so generally, after a couple of weeks, getting back on the oars is a little bit painful to start off again, but then you're all right. But as soon as you stop for longer than that, actually your body really starts to seize up, and it can be very, very difficult to get moving again.
Yeah, on the repeat, we've got somebody called Phil Kite. It's someone you might know.
Yes.
He says we're sponsored by Mammoth Mattresses, who will provide mattresses for the cabins, and it's all about eat, sleep, row, repeat.
Yeah, I get that everyone then in the team is a competent ocean rower and has obviously been training to be at their physical peak for the main event. What about the individual and the team mental psychological training and the consideration given to team dynamics and behaviour, especially when you're cooped up in, those pictures you showed us, Claire, they're really, really compact, space that you've got to live within.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think these challenges are actually more like 80% psychological and 20% physical. Like, obviously they are intensely physical, but actually the real challenge is the head game and kind of dealing with those confined conditions, and dealing with the problems that can come up in this completely unfamiliar environment, and dealing with the effects of malnutrition and sleep deprivation and all that sort of stuff. For me personally, I just spent a lot of time thinking about all the different scenarios that could crop up, and almost contingency planning in my head. And my training, as well as doing a lot of kind of strength and conditioning work, but I do quite a lot of endurance training as well, and just really understanding how far I can push my body, how far I can go past what my currently perceived barriers are. And I've found that incredibly helpful. And even through lockdown, just realizing how much more I could actually do, how much further I could push myself, and that kind of self-awareness has been hugely helpful. And then actually a lot of it's spending time with your team and understanding each other's personalities, learning what are the kind of signs that someone's struggling, understanding how they need you to help them, and all that is done through training, and doing those extended periods of time as well, so we all get to that point where we are knackered and we are in pain and that sort of thing. And yeah, just really getting to know each other, really communicating about it as well. It's really helped, being honest. I think we can all try and be a little bit macho and pretend we're all okay and there's no problem. And actually that's not helpful in these environments.
Yeah, I think personally, I think that's where the mixed team comes into play, if I'm perfectly honest. Yeah. We've got questions coming in about the conditions. What kind of weather and sea conditions can you expect? And there's a follow-up here from a viewer in Stromness who says, although the melting ice is opening up on the route, could it also provide dangers?
Yeah, the conditions would be very varied. There could be really nice conditions, and then within a couple of hours we could get a summer storm blowing up with a good north wind, causing 30-40 feet waves. So the conditions is really going to be very different from day to day, and the ice movement will be a problem. It's one of the things that we've been practicing on our training rows, is just using the boat in a very basic form, or using tiller ropes to steer the boat with, because like the auto helms would be no use in areas where a lot of moving ice, because the auto helm would just put you onto a course. So we need to be able to steer the boat out with all these moving ice particles and things.
Okay.
What's your going to be your biggest challenges? That's another question from somebody from Murray, for both Claire and Davy.
The biggest challenges, just the time span of it being over 2 months, the being so enclosed in such a small area with 8 people altogether. We have nowhere to get away from anybody. The slightest thing's going to start to niggle you, and it's just keeping all these petty niggles under control. And like Claire previously said, it's just about being honest with the rest of the crew. If something's starting to get to you, you better to hold your hand up and say, that's starting to get to me, could we sort that or something again, rather than letting it get on to a stage where it becomes a real problem.
I think dealing with the cold is a big one as well, and just being constantly wet, constantly wet and constantly cold, not able to get properly dry. I think that'll probably add to those niggles that Davy's also referred to there as well. Yeah, I think and actually dealing with the external stuff, obviously we've got the ice knocking about. There's also a risk that actually the ice could start to freeze back up again, and we don't want to end up in a situation where we're frozen back in. But also dealing with the wildlife as well. There's obviously the famous polar bears lurking around there, and narwhals, and you know there's lots of kind of external factors that we're going to have to deal with.
Regarding polar bears, so how would you actually deal with a polar bear lurking about or an attack or whatever?
Yeah, sorry, Davy.
No, when you go, Claire. Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of things. If we're going prepared that we intend to be rowing the whole time, but if for any reason, weather, for example, pushed us onshore, we've got tents with us, which leaves us incredibly vulnerable to polar bears. And so we'll have a kind of electric fence perimeter to set up around us. We're going to have a permanent watch shift, so there will always be someone on the lookout. But you know, if worst comes to worst, we are going to be trained with firearms if we had to be. So, yeah.
That's kind of scary, actually. Yes,
yes, it's a harsh reality.
And actually, so what is the most scary part of the exercise, would you say?
I think probably yes, the polar bear for me is the biggest thing, because they are the one animal that's known that they will actively hunt human beings. And if we've got somebody's cooking up a meal on the hot stove, got a hot water and that scent's going to travel for miles. And polar bears, they're very good at picking up scent. And like I say, they will hunt you, and the polar bears, they can actually swim faster than we can row the boats. You know, so as Claire said, our bear scaring techniques are going to have to be completely right on point, so that we spot them before they even get too close to us. You know, that for me, that's the biggest thing, I think.
I think the weather's an interesting one for me as well. You know, when you one of the sort of slightly unique things about this particular crossing is, you know, a lot of other ocean crossings, yes, you've got massive waves and wind to contend with and all of that sort of stuff, but it's a huge open body. Here we're going to be very enclosed. We're going to be quite close to the land, and the kind of unique weather patterns associated with that. But then we've also got the moving ice to contend with, and the kind of messier sea that all that's going to create. So, you know, there's a lot more risk with getting pushed into cliffs and onto rocks and all of that sort of thing, which we haven't had on other ocean rows. So yeah, I'm interested to see what that's going to be like. I think that's probably making me quite nervous too.
Yeah. On a positive note then, so you're making your progress. How are you going to be able to send reports of your progress to the outside world? How are we going to be able to keep in touch with what you're getting, what you're doing, what you're succeeding at?
We do have a SATCOM's company sponsoring us, who's going to be providing all our sort of comms equipment, SATCOM Global. So we're going to have satellite phones, and we're going to be able to kind of upload video through that as well, I believe, which we'll be able to kind of share on social media, which will be great. And we're also going to have a tracker, so you'll be able to kind of track our progress online as well. I know that's one of the most popular things when you do the Atlantic Challenge. You have a tracker and everyone gets addicted to what they call dot watching, where it kind of refreshes every 4 hours and everyone's like frantically tuning in every 4 hours to see how the dots have changed. So yeah, I believe we'll have a similar tracker on our boat, so everyone can dot watch then.
Yeah. So you're not just going to be rowers and you're not just going to be resting. Some people are going to be having to do the blogs and the comms by the sound of it.
Absolutely.
I look forward to that though. That's good stuff. I'm going to have to bookmark all this stuff now. It's fascinating when you do the research. Are you finding you're getting a lot of interest in the plans in this expedition now?
Yeah, certainly locally in Orkney, there's a lot of interest. You're meeting people constantly that's asking about it, just the whole time. Yeah, certainly.
Got a question from Claire from Murray. It's asking that with you having rowed across the Atlantic, how are you getting back? And or are you going to keep going all the way around?
That's really tempting, but sadly my work might have a few things to say about that particular plan. Yeah, unfortunately we'll be coming back via slightly conventional means, I suspect, and flying home.
What's the total distance that you're going to be rowing? And you know, did the Newcastle journey in July, did that give you good preparation?
So I want to go, Claire.
No, go, Davey. That's fine. Sorry.
Yeah, total distance is going to be about 3,700 kilometres from Pond Inlet to Point Barrow, and the row from Newcastle to Kirkwall was 350 miles, so that was approximately 1/10 of the Northwest Passage. So a fair bit more to do, but the Newcastle row was really good as well. Just give a little insight into things, and the wildlife that we saw from Newcastle. If we see anything like that in the Northwest Passage, it would just be amazing.
Mm. I was reading on the website, on the Facebook page. This challenge isn't just about the rowing, which is a challenge in itself, to say the least. But it's also about highlighting the impact of climate change. How are you going to be, or how's the team going to be doing that, bringing that to the forefront of all us mere viewers?
I guess the quick answer would be by simply being able to do it. Says quite a lot, unfortunately. But the longer answer would be we're documenting our journey. We're going to be we're in talks with production companies, and we're going to have a documentary. We've also been liaising with the sort of local Inuit population to sort of seek their input and blessing, really. But that's one of the key things that would be really interesting to understand, is how climate change and the increasing ice melt is impacting their way of life and how they're living in their traditions. We're also going to be assisting some institutions with just data gathering. Obviously, there's a limited amount that we can do on a very small man-powered ocean rowing boat, but we are going to be able to sort of collect some samples and that sort of thing, and do some data logging for institutions to support climate change research.
Yeah, well,
I think
climate change is
also the important thing is for us that we're not telling people what's happening. We're going to log it, like Claire says, and we're just going to show people what's happening there and then, and let other folks make up their own minds as how they see it.
You're going to show it for what it is, Davey.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Somebody's just asked the question again. It's obviously people are concerned about your welfare here. If there was an emergency, when you're so far away from emergency services, what are the plans to cope with something like that?
We're obviously taking a full medical kit, but we also have a really good advantage in that quite a number of the team are actually qualified medics in various forms. And in particular, one of the team is an expedition medic. So their experience and advice is obviously going to be invaluable, and they're obviously playing a really key role in pulling together the appropriate supplies and equipment. As you say, we are unsupported and we're out there on our own, and you have to be self-sufficient. That's a key risk as well. If anything goes drastically wrong, we're a very long way from help, and it's not easily accessible to kind of come in and pull us out. So yeah, we do have to be very prepared.
We're getting near the end of our questions, folks. One question I would like to know is, with the limited kit, what would be the piece that you wouldn't be without?
Probably a hot water cup, thermos cup, keep the hot chocolate warm.
Do you know what? I was going to say the exact same thing.
I like that answer.
It's a huge psychological boost, actually.
Yes,
it was a habit even on the Atlantic, where frankly it was roasting hot most of the time, but pitch black, in the night. It's such a boost just to have that moment where you just take some time out with a crewmate and just a few mouthfuls of really tasty hot drink is just amazing.
A good motivation to keep going.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for such a fascinating talk. I'm really looking forward to following your progress of the Northwest Passage for next year. So thank you both, Davy and Claire, and to everyone that's joined us this afternoon. And for everybody out there, you can follow the rowing expedition through the Northwest Passage via the team's website and Facebook pages. We will have links to both in the YouTube description box.
Yes, and our next talk will be today at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Join us to hear Neil Kermode and Gareth Davis talk about the wind on the sea and the energy future.
And if you're enjoying the festival, please consider donating. Full details on how to do so will be below. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do like, follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember that we've got the Festival Club opening tonight. It'll be the first night at 9:30. We hope to see you there. And goodbye from me.
And goodbye.